Hello and welcome to this course. In this course, we are going to learn how to set up the environment variables for the ASP.NET Core MVC web application. And also we are going to see how to deploy the application to the Azure services using the Azure DevOps CI/CD pipeline. So by the end of this course, we are going to be able to set up and deploy the application to different environments. So if you like this course, please subscribe, like, comment, and share this video with your friends. So with that in place, let's enjoy the course. Hello and welcome to this lecture. I am going to create ASP.NET Core MVC web application. I have Visual Studio open, so I will click on File, New, Project, and then I will choose ASP.NET Core Web App Model, View, and Controller. If you don't find this template, you can go and search for C#, all platforms, and then web. Then select ASP.NET Core Web App Model, View, and Controller. I will do Next. Then I will give the application name, so it's going to be a blog web app. Then I'll do Next. For the .NET framework, it's going to be a .NET 8, and then authentication type is going to be none. Configuration for the HTTPS should be checked. Then we need to go and do Create. The application will take a couple of seconds to create all the files and the components to run the application. So the application has been created. I can just close this window and then I will run the application to make sure that everything is working fine. The application is up and running and the browser is logged in the application. So I can see the default template with the welcome message and the top menu here. So I will close the browser and then I will do an HTML modification for the default template. For that, I will open the views folder and then I will go to the home folder. Then I will click on the index.cs HTML. I will replace the HTML with a different HTML that I have already here. Then I will close the file. I will do the same thing for the layout. So I will just replace the header with a different header that I have already. So I will go ahead and just replace that header. Perfect. So I will just save that. I will run the application to make sure that the changes that I have made are applied. The browser is loading. We should see the new template. We have a header with a welcome message, and then we have 3 articles. Each article has an image and a date, and then a title, a description, and a button. In the previous lecture, we've seen how to set up ASP.NET Core MVC template through Visual Studio, and we did some modification in the HTML to get this template. I will close the browser. Then I will click on this small arrow. These are the default profiles that are coming with the application. We have HTTP, HTTPS, and IIS Express profile. If I click on Debug Properties, we will see the Launch Profiles window. These are the same profiles that are coming with the application. So the HTTP, HTTPS, and IIS Express. Each profile has its own configuration. We can see the same profile under the Properties folder in the Launch settings.json. If I click on this file, I will see these profiles here: HTTP, HTTPS, and IIS Express. Any change that I do in this file, it will be reflected on Launch Profiles window. So for example, if I change this to development 100 and then save the change, if I go to the Debug Properties, then under the Launch Profiles window, click on HTTP profile, I can see the changes here, development 100. Same thing, so if I change here this value from development 100 to development 200 and save that, it will be reflected here in the Launch settings.json. So I can see development 200. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to remove the HTTP profile, and also I'm going to remove the IIS Express profile. So to do that, I will click on Delete Selected Profile. Then I will select IIS Express and delete that profile as well. As you can see, the changes that I just made has been reflected on the length settings.json. Then I will create 3 profiles: development, staging, and production. Now I have HTTPS profile. I will just rename that to development. So to do that, I will rename this profile by clicking here. Then I will call it development. So by default, I have this development value for the ASP.NET Core environment variable. I will do the same thing for staging profile. I will just duplicate the profile and rename it to staging. Then I will go to the environment variable and put the value staging. Then I will do the same thing for production. I will just rename that to production and make sure that I have the environment variable set to production. Perfect. Now I have 3 profiles: development, staging, and production, and I can see them in the length settings.json file: staging, production, and then I have development. Also, we need to remove the IIS settings as we don't need it. Now I'm going to run my application to make sure that everything is working fine. The browser is loading. We have the welcome message and the template, so everything seems to be working fine. I will close the browser and then I will close the length settings.json file. Now I need to know which environment I am in. If I am using the development profile, I need to know that I am under the development environment. If I am using the staging profile, I need to know that I am under the staging environment. Same thing for production. So to do that, I need to open the controllers folder. Then I need to open the home controller file. Inside here, I need to create a property of type iConfiguration, and then inject this property in the constructor. With that in place, I can use the configuration to call the environment variable. I will copy the configuration property here, and then I will come to the index view action method. I will create a view bag, and then I will call it environment. In this view bag, I will store the environment variable. So I will use the configuration and then open the brackets, and then I will need the environment variable name. To get the environment variable name, remember that we have for each profile environment variable name. As we can see here, we have ASP.NET Core environment name, which is associated with each profile. So development, staging, and production, all of them, they have ASP.NET Core environment variable. That's the reason why we need to copy this environment variable name and use it in our home controller to make sure that we are on the right environment. So this configuration will tell us which environment we are in. So with that in place, we are good to go. I will go and use the viewbag.environment in the HTML. For that, I will open the layout. Then inside of this message, I will place that here. Now I need just to add an HTML tag, it's called mark, just to highlight the environment. I will copy this from here, just move it from here and inside the HTML tag, and then remove the extra space. So I think I'm ready to go. Let's go and run the application under the development profile. The browser is loading. We should see the development environment. Perfect. So we are under the environment that is development. Let's do the same thing for staging. I will need to choose a staging profile and then run the application. Perfect. So the application is running under the staging environment. I will do the same thing for production. And then run. The browser is loading and we can see that we are under the production environment. Everything looks fine and it's working as expected. In the previous lecture, we've seen how to set up different profiles for each environment: development, staging, and production. And then we added some C# code and HTML to the application to know which environment we are using based on the profile selected. In this lecture, we are going to create an app setting file for each profile to consume it for the right environment. For example, if I want to run the application under the development profile, then I need to use the right app setting file that has the settings for development environment. For example, a database connection for development environment. Same thing will be applied for production and staging. If I want to run the application under the staging profile, then I need to use the right app setting file that has the settings for staging environment. Same thing again for production. By default, the ASP.NET Core MVC template creates two files, the appsettings.json file and the appsettings.development.json file. The appsettings.json file will contain all the common configurations that will be the same across all the profiles, development, staging, and production, regardless of which environment we are in, whereas the appsettings.development.json file will contain all the settings that are going to be dedicated only for development profile. The question here, how the development profile will know which app settings file to pick up? The answer to this question is the environment variable. If we go to the debug properties, then we can see that development profile has environment variables. And we can see also that we have an environment variable of name ASP.NET Core environment with a value development. When we run the application under the development profile, it will look up for the value development, and then it will search for app settings that starts with appsettings.developmentvalue.json. And that's how it picks up the right app settings file. Same thing for staging. When we run the application under the staging profile, then it will look up for staging value and then search for an app settings file like appsettings.staging.json. Same thing for production. It's going to look up for appsettings.production.json to pick up all the settings for the right profile and the environment. I'm going to create two app settings files, one for staging and another one for production, by following the same naming convention as app settings file for development environment. So for staging, it's going to be appsettings.staging.json, and then for production, it's going to be appsettings.production.json. To do that, I will do a right click on the project, then I will do add, then new item. I will look up for a JSON extension and then select JavaScript JSON configuration file. I will name that appsettings.staging.json. Then I will add the file. By default, it generates a JSON property with an array of strings. So we don't need this. We are going to just remove it and save the file. I will do the same thing for production. Right click on the project, then add, then new item. Then again, look for a JSON extension, then select a JavaScript JSON configuration file. Then I will name that appsettings.production.json. Then I will add the file. Same thing, we are going to remove this JSON property here and then save the file. Now we have three environments. So we have app settings for development, another app settings for production, then another one for staging. So what I'm going to do is I'm going just to remove the generated code that was previously generated for development app settings and just remove that as we don't need it. I will save the file. I will do the same thing for appsettings.json. I will remove the generated JSON properties and objects. I will save that. With that in place, we are good to go for configuring the app settings for each profile to use it for the right environment. Remember, the appsettings.json file will contain all the common configurations that will be the same across all the profiles, regardless of which environment we are in. That means any settings that we write in the app settings file will be shared across all the environments. I have two properties, subtitle and footer title. Each property has its own description. These two properties are going to be shared across all the environments. So I will save this file, and then I need to go to the home controller to call these two properties. For that, I need to open up the controllers folder, then go to the home controller. Under the index action method, I need to call these two properties from the appsettings.json. So to do that, I created two viewbacks to store the value. So a viewback for subtitle and another viewback footer title. So to call the properties from the appsettings.json, we are using the getSection method, and it takes the name of the property. Same thing for the footer title, it's taking the name of the property footer title. So with that, I need to copy the viewback subtitle and then go to the HTML. First, I need to save the home controller file. Then I need to go to the views, then shared folder, then in the layout, then I will replace this text with the viewback that I have for the subtitle. I will save that. Then I need to go to the home controller and then copy this viewback here for the footer title. Then I need to go again to the layout, scroll down, and then replace this line of HTML with the viewback for the footer title. I will save that and then run the application to see the changes. The browser is loading. Then we can see here that we have the text is coming here. Under the development environment, if I scroll down, I will see the changes that are coming from the app settings here. This is the footer title, and here I have the subtitle. These two are coming from the appsettings.json. So let's try and run the application under the staging environment and see what's going to happen. The browser is loading, and then we can see that we are under staging, and we can see that the subtitle is the same, didn't change. Also for the footer is the same text message. I will close the browser and then run it under the production. Again, it's the same thing. We are getting the same text and the same footer text. I will close the browser, then I will close the other windows too. Now I need to configure the other appsettings files, development, production, and staging. I will open up the appsettings.development.json, and then I will paste the connection strings object with a property block connection string that has a description that indicates from where the connection string is coming from. So here I put appsettings.development.json that will know which environment we are coming from. I will save this file and then open up the production app settings. I will do the same thing. So I will add a connection strings object with the same property block connection string. Here I will change the development here to production. Then I will save this file. I will do the same thing for staging. I will change that to staging. Perfect. We need now to consume the connection string from the home controller. For that, I'm going to the home controller under the index action method, and I will create a viewbag with a connection string. So here I'm using the getSection method, and I'm using the connection string object with the colon and then the property block connection string. I'm using the colon because the connection string is an object, and then it has a property block connection string. To access this property under a connection strings object, we need to use the colon. Perfect. So now we can go ahead and copy the viewback connection string and go to the layout. Then we need to put that in here to show the value of the connection string. I will copy this and then replace this viewback with the viewback connection string. I will also add the mark HTML tag just to highlight the connection string. I will just move this inside of the mark HTML tag and save this. But before, I will also add a breaking line here. Perfect. Now I will go ahead and run the application under the production. The browser is loading, and then we will see that we are getting the connection string from the appsettings.production.json file which is this file over here. And also we notice that we have the same subtitle that didn't change, that is coming from the appsettings.json. And same here in the bottom, we can see the same subtitle and didn't change. But for production, we were able to point to the appsettings.production.json file to get this connection string. Let's run this under the staging and see what's gonna happen. I will choose staging and then run the application. The browser is loading now, and we can see that we are getting the database connection string from the appsettings.staging.json file. So we are successfully running the connection string for staging environment from the appsettings.staging.json. So now I will run it under the development to see the impact of that change. The browser is loading, and perfectly we can see that we are getting the connection string description from the appsettings.development.json. And also we have this subtitle text that is coming from appsettings.json is the same, doesn't change regardless of which environment we are in. Same thing here, we can see that the footer title is the same here. Lastly, we are going to see how we can override the appsettings.json file configurations. In the previous lecture, we have seen that the appsettings.json file contains all the common configurations that will be the same across all the environments. But sometimes we need to override the configuration and use it in different environments. To do that, I will open up the appsettings.json file, and then let's say we want to override the subtitle JSON property and show it in different environment with a different value. So I will go to the appsettings.development.json file, and then I will override the subtitle JSON property with a different value, development expectations. I will save the file and then run the application under the development profile. The browser is loading, and then we can see that we are getting the subtitle value from the appsettings.development.json, which is here development expectations value. And the application is no longer taking the subtitle from the appsettings.json file. If I run the application under the staging environment, let's go to the staging profile and then run the application, we will see that the application will take the value from the appsettings.json file, which is the default value. The browser is loading, and we can see here that we are getting the default value from the appsettings.json file. The reason why, because the appsettings.staging.json file doesn't have a subtitle property here. So if we want to override that in staging as well, we can put here staging, for example, just to know where we are coming from, and then save that file and then run it under staging. I will go to the browser, then we can see staging expectations. Now staging is taking the subtitle from the appsettings.staging.json file. So if I go to production, we will see that production, it's still pointing on the appsettings.json to get the subtitle. The reason why again, because production doesn't have a subtitle property. So I will go ahead and run it. You can see that production is taking the default value from the appsettings.json file. I will close the browser, then I will close the other tabs. I would like to mention something about the environment variables. If I go to the properties folder, then if I open up the launch settings.json file, we will see that for each profile, we have environment variables. By default, we have ASP.NET Core environment variable for each profile, but we can add more environment variables to each profile. For example, I will just paste a new environment variable. It's called custom with a custom app value. Then I will call this environment variable from the controller. So I will go to the controllers folder, then home controller. Inside of the index action method, I will call it the same way I called ASP.NET Core environment. So I will just replace this with custom and then the view bag with the custom name. I will copy the view bag and then go to the HTML. I will go to the views, then shared, then the layout, and then I will put the value inside of the mark here. This is gonna be at view bag to see the values. I will save all the files and then I will run the environment under the development profile. I will run the application. The browser is loading and we can see the custom app, which is the new value that is coming from the new environment variable under the development environment. We can do the same thing for production and staging. I will close the browser. Then I will go to the appsettings.json file. And then I will copy this new environment variable. I will go to the environment variable of staging. And then I will change the value to staging or stage. Then the same thing for production. I will make this as prod. I will save this. And then I will run the application under the production. So here we can see the new environment variable for production custom add prod and the production environment, the old one. So let's try again with staging and see the result. Staging, run the application. Perfect. We can see the new environment variable that is coming here under the staging environment with the custom app stage. With that in place, we were able to use multiple environment variables for one profile. So we did it for staging, production, and development. Hello and welcome to this lecture. We are going to install the Entity Framework Nugget packages for this section of this course. But before doing that, I am going to clean up our application from the previous modification. If you remember, we added some examples to show how we can display multiple environment variables for each profile. So we added a custom app environment variable. Also, we override the subtitle, and then we added a connection string display. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the custom app environment variable. Then I will remove the override of the subtitle. Also, I will remove the display of the connection string. So to do that, I will close the browser. Then I will go to the properties folder. I will open up the appsettings.json, and then I will remove the custom environment variable. I will do that for all the profiles. Same thing for production. Then I will go to controllers, then home controllers. I will remove the viewBag custom. Then the same thing for the connection string viewBag. Perfect. Now I need to go to the HTML. I will go to the shared folder, then the layout. Then here I will remove the connection string display. Same thing for the viewBag custom. I will remove that. Then I will go to the appsettings.development.json, and then I will remove the override of the subtitle. Same thing on staging. Perfect. So with that in place, I will run the application and make sure that everything is working fine. The browser is loading. As we can see, we have the default template that we had before. So we are ready to go and install the Entity Framework for this project. What I'm going to do, I'm going to close the browser and then close the other tabs. Then I will do a right click on the project. Then I will go to the Nugget packages. Then I will browse for Entity Framework. So by default, you will see the Entity Framework Nugget packages. What we are going to install the Entity Framework Core. So Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. So I will go ahead and install. I will hit apply. Then I will accept. The Microsoft Entity Framework Core has been installed. Also, I need another entity framework, which is going to be for SQL. And then I will look for a SQL. Then I will choose Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. I will install that as well. I will apply, then I will accept. Perfect. So we have Microsoft Entity Framework Core.SQL Server installed in our project. With that in place, we are good to go for the next lecture. In this lecture, I will install the Entity Framework Power Tools extension for Visual Studio, which is a great free tool that makes the reverse engineering easier than ever, and it helps build the DB context class faster. I will go to extensions, then manage extensions. I will make sure that I am on the online tab. Then I will search for EF Core Power Tools. Then I will install the extension. I will click download. Then I need to restart the Visual Studio. I will click on modify to complete the installation. The installation has been completed, so I will close the window. Then I will start Visual Studio. I will do a right click on the project. Then I will see EF Core Power Tools. Then I can see the reverse engineering and other options. Also, we can install this extension by going to the marketplace.visualstudio.com and then search for EF Core Power Tools. Then click on the extension here, EF Core Power Tools. Then you can click download and download the extension. We have already installed the extension in Visual Studio and we are good to go for the next lecture. In this lecture, I am going to create a database for each environment, staging, production, and development. Here I have the server type of database engine. Then the server name is the server name that I'm using. Authentication, it's going to be Windows authentication. For the connection security, the encryption will be mandatory, and then the trust server certificate should be checked. I will do connect. Then I will grab the SQL Server script that I have already prepared. So it's going to be a script that has all the database objects. Here I have the statements that is going to create the databases. One for development, which is blockdb dev. Another one for production, blockdb-prod. Another one for staging, blockdb stage. Also the statement to use the database. And also I have a table article with 6 columns, ID, image URL, title, description, pub date, and feature. Also for each environment, I have its own data. For development, I have the data that it's going to be on the article table. For staging, I have the article staging data. For production is the same. I have the production data for the article table. So I'm going to create the 3 databases. I will execute that. Then I will make sure that databases has been created. I will do refresh and then open up the databases folder. Here I have 3 databases, blockdb dev and blockdb prod, blockdb stage. I need to make sure that I am under the development database. I will use the use blockdb dev. I will execute that. Now I am under the blockdb-dev database. Then I will create the table. I will execute that. Then I will just execute the data that I want to be in the article table. I will go ahead and just execute that. Perfect. I need now to go to the database, open it up, then to the tables. I need to see the article table inside of the tables folder. Here we go. So I have the article table. I will just go and select the top 1000. Here I have the information that I need for the development environment. I will do the same thing for staging and production. I will go ahead and use the staging database. Then I will create the table. Then I need to insert the data in the staging database. Perfect. I will do the same again for production. I will use the production database, then create the table, then insert the data in the database of production. Perfect. I will just go ahead and refresh the database to see all the tables. For production, I will go to tables. I have the article table under the database of production. Then I have an article table under the staging database. So I will just open this up, select top 1000 row. Here I have the data that I need for staging. And also for production, I will do a select top 1000 rows. Perfect. I have the data that I need for each environment, and we are good to go for the next lecture. In the previous lecture, we created 3 databases, one for development environment, another one for production environment. Then we created another one for staging environment. Each database has an article table, and each table has its own data based on which database we are coming from. In this lecture, I am going to create a connection between the web application and SQL Server database using the Entity Framework Core Power Tools. So I will do a right click on the project. Then I will go to the Entity Framework Core, then Reverse Engineer. Here I need to add a connection to the database. I will provide the name of the server. Then the authentication will be Windows authentication. Then the encrypt should be mandatory. I will check Trust Server Certificate. Now I need to see my databases. So I will select a database. Then I will click OK. Now I need to select Entity Framework Core 8. I will click OK. Now I need to select the table. I have article table. Here I have the context name, namespace, and entity type path. So for the context name, I will change that to blogdb context. Then for the namespace, I will keep the blog web app. Then for the entity types path, I will keep the models folder because I want the files to go to the models folder. You can change that to any folder you want. For what type to generate, I will keep the entity types and db context together. Also, I will keep everything here as it. I will click OK. By default, it generates efpt.config.json file, which is a file that has all the metadata. For example, the name of the DB context class, blogdb context. Also the namespace and the tables. Here I have one table, which is article. I will close that. Then I will go to the models. I have two files generated, article and blogdb context. Article is the model that is coming from the table. Also, I have the blogdb context that has the structure of the table. In this lecture, I am going to configure the appsettings files to use the database connection and then retrieve the data from the database using the entity framework. So I will go ahead and open up the appsettings.development.json, and then I will replace the description here with a connection string. Here I have a data source with the name of the server. Then I have the initial catalog with the blogdb-dev, which is the database that I'm using for development. Also, I have integrated security set to true, and also I have trust server certificate set to true as well. I will save this file, then I will go to production and then replace the description here with a connection string. Here I will need to change this to prod because the database for production is blogdb-prod. Also, I will need to do the same thing for staging. I need to replace this with a connection string and then change the database to be stage. So with that in place, I have a database for staging and I have configured all the appsettings files to use the right connection string. I will close all the files. Then I need to create an article service to consume it to get the data from the database. I will go ahead and do right click and create a new folder. I will call it services. Then I will create a subfolder. I will call it business. I will add another subfolder. I will call it interfaces. Perfect. Now I will create an interface. I will call it iArticle. So I will go to interface and then I will name it iArticle. Now I need to add a method. It's going to return task of IEnumerable of articles. So it's going to be task. Then IEnumerable of articles. So the article that I'm using here is the article that is coming from the models, which is the article class here. I will close this, then I will go here, then I will call it get all articles. I will need to create an article business class. For that, I will do a right click on the business folder, then I will do a class, then I will call it article business. So I will do add, then I need to create a DB context property of type blogdb context. So here I have a blogdb context property, and then I inject that in the constructor of the class. So with that in place, I need to implement the iArticle interface, and then I need to implement the methods. Here I have one method, so I will go ahead and return the db context article table. So I will remove this, turn db context articles dot to list async. I need to make sure that I have async in the method signature, and also I need to add a wait keyword in front of the method. So with that in place, the service is ready to use to consume the data from the database. I will close all the files, then I need to go to the home controller, then I need to do a dependency injection. I will create a iArticle property and then inject it in the constructor. So I will go ahead and do a private read only, then iArticle, then I do article. Now I need to inject the iArticle property in the constructor. So same thing, I will go ahead and do iArticle article. Then I need to assign the property here with the article. Another thing that I need to do, since I'm going to use the data inside of the index action method, I need to add the async keyword, and then I need to return a task of iAction result. Now I need to create an article variables. Then I need to use the article property to call the method getAllArticles. I need to add the await keyword as well. So with that in place, the home controller is ready. What I need to do now, I need to go to the program.cs, and then I will add a code here. So I will just paste this code. Here I'm using the addScoped function, which is used to set up the service to be used via the dependency injection. It's taking the interface iArticle, and it's taking the article business class as well. Here I'm getting the connection string from the appsettings files. So if we go to one of the files, I can see that I have blog connection string, which is the keyword that we pass here in the method of getConnectionString. Also, I'm adding the blogdb context to be used by SQL Server connection. With that in place, we are ready to go to the HTML to do some modification to show the data. So I will go to views, then I will go to the index. This is the old HTML we had, so I will remove that and then replace it with a new HTML. Here I have a typed view of the list of articles, and then here I'm checking if the model is null. If the model is not null, it's going to show the HTML with the data. If not, it's not going to show anything. Also, I have a for each loop. It's filtering the data and looking for a featured article. So if a featured article found, it will list that article here. Also, I have another for each loop that is looking for non-featured articles. Another thing that we need to do, we need to go to the home controller, and then we need to pass the article list as an object to the view. Perfect. Now I can run the application under the development environment and see the changes. The browser is loading, and we are able to see the data that is coming from development database. Here we have the image, and we have the publish date. Also, we have a title and description. It's the same data we have in the database for development. Also, we can see a non-featured articles, and this is a featured article. I will close the browser, then I will go to the staging environment. I will go to staging, then I will run the application under the staging environment. Perfect. I can see a different images and a different title, different date, and a different description. So also I can see a non-featured articles with a featured article. Perfect. So I will close that and then run the application under the production. So I will go to production. I will run this. The browser is loading. And again, I can see a different images, which means that is coming from the production. So we were able to grab different data for different environments based on which database we are using for each environment. Hello and welcome to this lecture. I am going to create Azure Web App Service for each environment, development, staging, and production. I have already created an Azure account. If you don't have one, you can go to the Azure website and then create Azure free account. These are the benefits of Azure free account, and you can have $200 credits for 1 month. So I will go back to my Azure account and then I will do create a resource. This is the resource that we will need to create. It's a web app resource. If you don't find it, you can just search web app. So, and then click web app. This is the resource I will do create and then web app to go to the form. So this is the form that I need to fill out to create a web app. So the web app that I'm going to create, it's going to be for development. First thing, I need to provide a resource group. So I will do create new group, and then I will provide the name of the resource group. It's going to be rgblog web. Then I need to provide the name of the app. So the name of the application, it's going to be blog web-dev. Since my application is based on code, so I will let the code checked. Then I will go to the runtime stack, and then I will select .NET 8 since we chose the .NET 8. Then I will keep it Windows, and then the region is going to be East US. For the Windows plan, it's going to be the same here. And for the pricing plan, I will choose the free plan. I will go to explore pricing plans. Then I will select free. Then I will select that pricing plan. Everything looks good. I will go through the other tabs. So the database, we don't need a database for now. So the deployment, we don't need any CI/CD for now. Networking is going to be by default, same value. Monitoring, we are going to switch it to no for now. And then I will keep everything the same. I will go ahead and do create. So this web app is going to be for the development environment. and the deployment is in the progress. So what I'm going to do right now, it's going to create another web app for staging. So to do that, I will go back to the home page. Then I will go to create a resource. It's the same steps, just at different names. It's going to be for staging this time. I will choose the same resource group I created earlier. So it's going to be RG Blog Web. Then for the web app name, it's going to be Blog Web Stage. Same thing, since my app it's based on code, it's going to be code checked. Then .NET 8, because my application is based on .NET 8. It's going to be Windows. The region is going to be STUS. And then the Windows plan is the same Windows plan I did for development. Pricing plan is going to be the same, free one. Then I will go directly to monitoring, and then I will switch it to no for now. Then I will do review and create. Perfect. So the deployment is in progress. I will go back to the home page and then create a web app for production. So again, same steps. So I will go to create from here this time. And then I will use the same resource group, Blog Web. Then for the web app name, it's going to be Blog Web Prod. Since my application is based on code, I will select code. Then for the runtime, it's going to be .NET 8. My application is using .NET 8. The operating system is going to be Windows. Region is going to be STUS. And then the same Windows plan and the same pricing plan is going to be free. I will go to the top. I go to monitoring. And then I will switch this to no for now. Then I will do a review and create. Then I will create the resource. The deployment has been completed, so I can go to the home page. I can see the web apps already here, prod, stage, and dev. But I will go to the resource group to see them listed. So as we can see here, this is the app service plan. And this is the 3 web apps. Each one represents an environment. So I have one for development, which is Blog Web Dev. Another one for production, Blog Web Prod. Another one for staging, which is Blog Web Stage. So with that, we are good to go for the next lecture. I will create Azure SQL database for each environment, development, staging, and production. So I will go to create a resource. Then I will look up for Azure SQL. Then I will select the Azure SQL resource and then create Azure SQL. So here I will select single database and do create. Then here I need to provide the resource group. So our resource group is RG Blog Web. Also, I need to provide the database name. It's going to be blogdb-dev. Also for the server, we don't have a SQL server. We need to create one. I will do create new. Then we need to provide a server name. So our server name is going to be Blog Web DB server. Then for the location, it's going to be East US. For the authentication method, it's going to be use SQL authentication. And then we need to provide a login and a password. So for the login, server admin login is going to be blogdb admin. And then we need to provide a password. Perfect. I will do OK. Now we have our server. Then for the SQL Elastic Pool, we're going to keep it no. And then for workload environment, it's going to be development. Also here, I need to configure the database for the compute and storage. I will make sure that I have general purpose, most budget friendly. And also I want the compute tier to be serverless. Also, we can see on the right side that we have the estimated storage cost per month is going to be $4.78. And then I will keep the max vCores as 1 and then the minimum vCores at 0.5 cores. For the rest of configuration, I will keep it the same and I will do apply and then review and create. The deployment is complete. Then I need to go to the home page and create another database for the staging environment. So I will go and do create a resource. Then I will search for Azure SQL. Then I will select Azure SQL and then create an Azure SQL database. It's going to be a single database. Then I will do create. By default, we are getting the resource group, which is the resource group we created. Also, we need to provide a database name. So the database name, it's going to be blogdb stage, since we are creating this database for staging environment. Also, the server, it's going to be the server that we created earlier. And then for the SQL Elastic Pool, we are going to keep it as no. And then for the workload environment, is going to be development. Also, I will go to the configure database. and then make sure that I have general purpose, most budget friendly, and then make sure that serverless is checked. And also I will keep the same configuration as it. I will do apply. Then for the backup storage redundancy, it's going to be the default option, which is the locally redundant backup storage. I will go ahead and do review and create. The deployment is in progress. I will go home and then create another database for production environment. So I will go to create a resource. I will search again for Azure SQL and then create an Azure SQL database. I will do Azure SQL and then single database. Again, the resource group is going to be the RG blog web, which is our resource group. And then for the database name, it's going to be blogdb prod. And then the server, it's going to be the server we created earlier. For the SQL Elastic Pool, it's going to be no. And then for the workload environment, it's going to be development. Also, I will go to the configure database and then make sure that I have general purpose, which is the most budget friendly. And then I will make sure also that I have the computer tier is serverless, and everything else will be the same. Also, we need to make sure that the estimated storage cost per month is going to be $4.78. I will do apply and then create. The deployment is complete. Then I need to go to the home page. Then I will go to our resource group. Then here I can see the 3 databases, one for development, another one for production. Then we have a database also for staging. I will connect to the development database and see if I can do a connection to the server. So here I have the login. Then I will provide the password. I will click OK. So if you encounter this kind of error, that means the public network access is denied. So what we need to do, we need to go to our server and then provide our IP address. Click on overview. I will do OK here. Then I need to click on set server firewall. Under the public access tab, I need to do selected network. I will click on add your client IP address. Perfect. So now I need to go back to my database. So I will go to the resource group, then go to the blogdb dev. Then I will go to the query editor and provide the password. Perfect. So we are able to connect to the database and we can see we don't have any tables or views for now. I will go to staging database and production database and make sure that we are able to connect. I will go again to the resource group. So this is the prod database. Then I will go to the query editor. I will provide the password. Perfect. So we are able to connect to the production database as well. I will go back to the resource group and connect to the staging database. So we'll go to staging, then query editor, then I will provide the password. So perfect, we are able to connect to the 3 databases, development, staging, and production. Hello, in this lecture, I am going to deploy our web application to the Azure Web Apps. But before going forward, I need to do some configuration on the Azure Web Apps. So I need to go to the Azure account and then I will click on resource groups. Then I will open my resource group. Then I will open up the blog web dev, which is the Azure web app for development. Under the settings section, I will click configuration. Then I will make sure that the basic auth publishing credentials is on. So this will allow us to publish our application directly from Visual Studio to the Azure web app. So I will save the changes. Then I will do continue. I will do the same thing for the Azure web apps for staging and production. I will go to the resource groups again. Then I will look up for my resource group. Then I will do the same thing for the blog web prod. I will go to the settings section. Then I will click on configuration. Then I will make sure that the basic auth publishing credentials are on. So I will save this. And then go to the resource groups. Open up my resource group here, and then go to the blog web stage, which is the staging environment web app. I will go to the configuration under the settings section. Then again, I need to make sure that the basic auth publishing credentials are on. So I will save that, do continue, and we are good to go to Visual Studio to start deploying the application to our Azure web apps. So I will go to the Visual Studio, then I will do a right click on the project. Then I will do publish. I will choose Azure, host your application to Microsoft Cloud. Then I will do next. I will pick up Azure App Service for Windows. Then it will pick up the resource group automatically. I will open up my resource group. Then I can see my Azure Web Apps listed here. So I will deploy my application to the blog web dev, which is a development site for development environment. So I will click on this Azure Web App. Then I will do finish. A published profile file has been created with extension pub.xml. This file is under published profiles folder under the properties folder. If I close this and then I go to the properties folder, if I open up the published profiles, I can see the published profile file with the extension pub.xml. So if I open up the file, I can see the metadata that I can use to deploy the application. For example, I can see the resource group name, and also I can see the subscription. And here I can see the MS deploy service URL, which is the URL that is going to hold our files. Perfect. So I will close this file and then I will click publish. Perfect. Our application has been published successfully to the Azure Web App for development. If I open up this link, I will go directly to the Azure Web App site for development. As you can see here is blog-web-dev, which is the website for development environment. Perfect. So if you see this error here, that's because we are still using the connection string for the local database. So everything looks fine for now. I will close the browser. Here we can create a new profile by clicking on this plus here, new profile, and then you can publish your application to the staging environment using the Azure Web Apps. Or also you can do the same thing as we did earlier. So you can do a right click and do publish. It's the same thing. Also, we have more actions. So you can edit this profile, you can rename it or delete the profile or preview the profile. If I click edit, so you will see a window with some options that you can change and redeploy your changes. So I will close this. Then I will do new profile. I select Azure and then next. I will go with the Azure App Service for Windows. Then I will do the blog web stage, which is the staging environment web app. And then I will do finish. Another published profile file has been created for staging. So if I do close and then I go to properties, here I can see a second file, which is the blog web-stage file with extension pub.xml. So this file has the information about the staging environment, as we can see here. So we have blog web stage and other information that we are going to use for publishing this profile. I will close this file and then go and do publish. The profile for staging environment has been published successfully. If I click on the staging URL, I will see that I have blog web-stage, which is the web app for staging environment. Again, this error because we still have the local connection to our database. We need to connect the application to the Azure SQL. So I will close the browser and then I will do the same thing for the production environment. So I will go and then create a new profile. Then I will select the Azure App Service for Windows. I will open up the resource group. Then I will pick up the blog web prod, which is the Azure Web App for production environment. I will do finish. Another published profile file has been created for the production environment. So I will do close. And then if I go to the properties folder, I can see the prod here, the blog web prod, which is the profile for the production. Also, and I can see the right URL here, which is the blog web-prod.azurewebsites.net. I will close this published profile and then I will do publish. Perfect. Our application has been published to the Azure Web App for production environment. So if I click on this link, then I will see that I am under the blog web-prod, which is the web app for the production environment. Perfect. So also we need to make sure that our application is connected to the Azure SQL database instead of the local SQL database. So I will close the browser. Then I need to go to the resource groups. I will open up my resource group. Then I need to do a configuration in my Azure SQL server. So I will click on the server. Then I will go to networking under the security section. I will click on networking. Then I need to make sure to allow the Azure services and resources to access this server. So I will do that. So we'll check this. Then I will save the changes. Perfect. With that in place, we are good to go and change the connection string in our application to make sure that the application is taking all the changes from the database. What I need to do is I need to go to our databases. So I will go to the resource groups. Then I will open up my resource group. Then I will go to my dev database, which is blockdb-dev. Then I need to copy the connection string. So to do that, I will click on Show Database Connection String. And here I have two types of SQL connection strings. The first one, it has no user authentication. And the second one, it has the user authentication with the username and password. What I need to do is I need to copy the SQL authentication connection string. I will click on this icon here. Then I need to go to Visual Studio. Then I need to open up the app settings. So I will go to the appsettings.development.json file. And then I need to replace this local connection string with Azure SQL connection string. Now I need to provide a password. So I will remove that and then provide my password. I will make sure that I have the database for development, which is the initial catalog blog db-dev, which is the database for development environment. I will close the file. Then I will go back to the Azure account and I will go back to the resource group. And then I will go to the db prod. I will copy the connection string. So I will go ahead and do a copy here. Then I will go to Visual Studio. I will go to the appsettings.production.json. Then I will replace this local connection string with the Azure SQL connection string. And also I need to provide a password. Make sure that the database is for production database. So I have here blockdb prod, which is good. I will save the file and close it. Same thing for staging. I will go to my resource group and then open up the database for staging environment. And then I will go to Show Database Connection String. And then I will copy the second SQL connection string for staging environment. I will go to Visual Studio and then appsettings.staging.json file. Then I will replace this local connection string with Azure SQL connection string and provide a password. I will make sure that I have a SQL Server database for staging environment. So I have blockdb stage, which is perfect. So I will close the file. Then I need to republish the application for Azure Web App. So I will go ahead and do publish. This time it's going for production. This is a profile for production. As we can see here is blog web prod. It's going to take the changes that we just made on the appsettings.production.json and deploy it to the Azure Web App. So with that in place, we are good to go to the next step, which is migrating the data and the schema from the local databases to the Azure SQL databases. So I will close this publish profile. Then I will go to Tools, then SQL Server. Then I will click New Schema Comparison. So here I have the source and the target. The source is going to take the connection string to our local database, and then the target is going to take the connection to Azure SQL databases. I will click on the source, then I will select a source. Here in this window, I will do select connection. Then I need to provide the server name. So our server name is a local server, so I can do dot. Then I need to provide the database name, which is the blockdb dev. Also, the trust server certificate should be true. I will do connect. Perfect. So the database connection has been created. I will do OK. Then I need to provide the connection to the Azure SQL Server. So I need to go to the select target, then select a connection, and then I will click Show Connection Properties. For the server name, I need to provide the Azure server name. For that, I need to go to the Azure account. Then I need to go back to my resource group. So I will open up my resource group. Then I need to go to the server, which is our server, BlogWebDB server. Then I need to copy the server name. So I will copy the server name and then go back to Visual Studio and provide the server name. For the authentication, I will choose SQL Server Authentication. Then for the username, I need to provide the user server name that we used before, which is the BlogDB admin. Then for the password, we need to use the same password we used to connect to the server. So this is the password. Then I will click connect. Perfect. The connection has been created. I will do OK. Then on the top left, I will click compare. Perfect. We can see that we have an article table on our local database. And then for the Azure SQL database BlogDB dev, it has no table yet. So we need to push the schema of this table to our Azure SQL BlockDB dev database. So what I need to do, I will click on update. Then I will confirm. And it's going to update the target, which is the Azure SQL database BlockDB dev. Perfect. The schema has been updated. As we can see here, the local schema of the BlockDB dev has been published to the Azure SQL BlockDB dev. So I will go to the Azure account. Then I will go to my resource group. I will click on BlockDB dev database. And then I will go to the query editor. I will provide the password. Then I will click OK. If I open up the table, I should see my article table. So if I do a select top 1000, I will see no data because we just created the schema. We also need to push the data to this table. I will go to Visual Studio again, and then I will close this file. Then I will go to the tools, then SQL Server. This time I will choose New Data Comparison. So here's the same concept again. I need to choose the source and the target. Our source is our local database, which is the BlockDB dev database. I will go select connection. Then I will choose my local database. I will do connect. Then for the target, it's going to be the Azure SQL database, which is the BlockDB dev. Then I need to provide the password. So I will provide the password. Then I'll do connect. Perfect. Now we have the source database and the target database. I will keep the data compare options the same here, and then I will do next. The window here shows me the views and tables. I don't have any views. I have one table, which is the article table. This is the table that contains the data that I need to push to the Azure SQL database. So I will do finish. Then I make sure that I have the article table selected. So what I need to do, I need just to click update target. I will confirm. Then I need to go to the Azure SQL database and run the query to make sure that the data has been migrated. As we can see here, we were able to migrate the data from the local database to the Azure SQL database. I will do the same thing for the staging database and production database. So I will close this file. Then I will go to Tools, SQL Server, then a new schema comparison. Then I will select the source. I will do select connection. I will click on Show Connection Properties. For the server name, I will provide the dot since I have a local server. So for the authentication, it's going to be Windows Authentication. Then for the database name, it's going to be my staging database name, which is a local database. Also, I need to make sure that the trust server certificate is true. I will go ahead and do connect. Perfect. I have a local connection to my staging database. So I will go ahead and do OK. Then I need to provide the target. I will go select target, then select connection. I will go to show connection properties, and then I need to provide the Azure SQL server name, which is the Blog Web DB server. Also for the authentication, it's going to be SQL Server Authentication. Then I need to provide a username and a password. For the database name, I will provide the Azure SQL database name, which is the BlockDB stage. Also, I need to make sure that the trust server certificate is set to true. Then I need to click connect. Now I have a connection to the Azure SQL server. So I will do OK, and then I will click compare. I need to update my Azure SQL database BlockDB stage with the table schema. So I will do update. I will confirm. It's updating the schema for the Azure SQL BlockDB stage here. So the schema compare update has been successfully finished. So I will close the SQL schema compare file. Then I will go to Tools, then SQL Server, then a new data comparison to push the data from the local database to the Azure SQL database for staging environment. So I will go to select connection. Then I will select my local database, which is BlockDB stage for staging environment, and then do connect. Also, I need to provide a target database. So I will select the BlockDB stage, which is the Azure SQL BlockDB stage database. So I will click on that. Then I need to provide the password, and then I will do connect. Perfect. So now we have the target database. I will keep the same options here, and then I will do next. Here I can see my tables. I have one table, which is the article table. So I will do finish. I can see my article table with 3 records. I will do update target. I will go to the Azure account. Then I will go to my resource groups. I will select the BlockDB stage database and make sure that I have the schema and the data. I will go to query editor. Then I will provide my password. Then I will open up the tables. I have the table here. Then I need to make sure that I have the data from the local staging database. I can see the data that is coming from the local database to the Azure SQL database. So the last thing is to migrate the local production database to the Azure SQL production database. So I will go back to the Visual Studio, and then I will close the file. I will do the same steps again. So SQL Server, new schema comparison. Then I will specify the source, which is my local database. So I will go to show connection properties. Then I will provide the server name, which is a local server name. I will put just a dot. For the authentication, it's going to be Windows authentication. For the database name, it's going to be the BlockDB prod. Also, I need to make sure that the trust server certificate is set to true. I will do connect. Then I will do OK. Here I have my resource. I need to define my target. So I will go to select connection. Then I need to click show connection. Then I need to provide the server name. For the authentication, it's going to be SQL Server Authentication. For the username, we're going to use our username, which is the BlockDB admin, and then I will provide a password. For the database name, it's going to be Azure SQL Database for Production, which is the BlockDB prod. Also, we need to make sure that we have a trust server certificate set to true. I will click connect, and then I will do OK. Also, I will go to compare. I have my table article, then I will click update. I will confirm. It's updating the schema for the Azure SQL database. It's done. Then I need to close the file. Then I will go to tools again, SQL Server, then new data comparison. I need to select the connection. So I will go ahead and select my BlockDB prod, which is a local database for production. I will do connect. Then I need to select the target database, which is the Azure SQL database for production. It's BlockDB prod, which is an Azure SQL database. I will provide the password and then click connect. I will keep the same options. Then I will do next. Here I have my tables. I have an article table. I will do finish. Then I will click update target. I will go to my Azure account and make sure that my database has been updated. So I will go to my resource group. Then I will go to the BlockDB prod, then query editor, provide my password. Then I need to see the article table with the data that is coming from my local database for production. And I can see here the data that is coming from my local database to the Azure SQL database. So with that in place, so we are good to go to see our changes. So I will need to go to Visual Studio. I will close this file. I need to republish my application to the Azure Web Apps just to make sure that the changes that I made in the app settings files are there. So I will do a right click, then I will do publish. Then from the top here, I can see a list of the deployment profiles. I have a published profile for development, another one for production, then another one for staging. So I will start with the first one, which is the published profile for development. I will do publish. The application has been deployed to the development environment. As we can see here, we have the profile for development environment. And then we have the link blog web dev, which is for development environment. So also we need to publish the application to the staging environment. So I need to go and select the stage. Then I need to do publish. Our application has been deployed to the staging environment. I will do the same thing for production. I will go and choose the profile for the production and then do publish. The application has been deployed to the production environment. Now I need to go to the browser. So here I am under the production environment or production website. So, and I can see that the image is coming from production. And here I can see that there is an empty value here. Also, we need to notice something, that all the environments are pointing to production. The reason why, because the Azure App Services by default point directly to the production environment. So to fix that, we need to specify for each Azure Web App which environment should use. For example, if I go to the blog web dev Azure Web App, Then I need to specify which environment it should use, because by default it points to production. So I need to go to the environment variables under the settings section. So I will click on environment variables. Then I need to add an environment variable. So the environment variable name, it's going to be ASP.NET Core environment. It's the same environment variable name we have in the last settings.json. So if we see here the ASP.NET Core environment. So I need to go back to the Azure account and then provide the value development. Perfect. So I need to apply that. I need to do another apply and confirm. Now, if I go to the dev environment and do a refresh, it should work. Perfect. We are able to see the development value here, which is coming from the development environment. And also we are able to see the data that is coming from the development database. I will do the same thing for staging and production. I will go back to the resource group, the same thing for staging. I will go to the environment variables under the settings and then provide the ASP.NET Core environment variable with a value staging. Then I will provide staging value. Then I will do apply and confirm. Perfect. Now if I go to the staging environment and I do a refresh, perfect. Now I can see that I am under the staging environment and I can see that I'm getting the right data and the right information from the Azure SQL staging database. I will do the same thing for production. I will go to my resource group and then I will go to the Azure Web App for production. So I will go to the environment variables under the settings and then provide the environment variable. So it's going to be the ASP.NET Core environment and then production. Even the Azure web apps are by default pointing to production. It's a good practice to provide the ASP.NET Core environment value because sometimes applications are using the ASP.NET Core environment value for some purpose. So for example, in our case, we are using the ASP.NET Core environment value to display it as a title here. So even the application is perfectly pointing to the Azure SQL database for production, but here we have the empty value because we are using the ASP.NET Core value of it. So I will go back to the Azure account and then I will do apply. Then I will confirm that. Perfect. Now I need to go to production and then refresh the page. Perfect. As we can see, we have the environment variable value production because we set the value of ASP.NET Core environment to production. So with that in place, we were able to deploy our web application to the Azure Web Apps, and also we were able to deploy our local database to the Azure SQL database. Hello and welcome. In the previous lecture, we have seen how we deployed our application to different environments, development, staging, and production. But the question here, how can we see what we deployed to the Azure cloud? If you remember, we created published profiles for each environment. We have a published profile for development, another one for production, then another one for staging. For example, if I open up the environment development published profile, I can see something it's called MS deploy service URL, which is a URL that holds our deployed files. It's called a Kudu environment. If I copy the URL, and then I go to the browser, I do paste, and then I can see the Kudu environment. So remember that the keyword here is the SCM. If I remove this keyword, I can go back to my development environment or development website. If I put the keyword back again, I will be able to go to the Kudu environment. This is the Kudu environment. It gives you all the information you need to know about your application. For example, this is the development environment. If I click on app settings, I can see a JSON object. Here you can see the metadata information. For example, ASP.NET Core environment value, which is development, and also the website name, which is the blog web-dev, which is the website for development environment, and other information that you can benefit from. So also, if I go to the debug console, you have the choice to go with the CMD or PowerShell. If I click on CMD, I can see the folders of my application. If I go to the site, then www root, I can see all the files and the DLLs that I deployed to the Azure web app. So if I scroll down, I can see all the DLLs and the files that I need to run my application. For example, I can see the appsettings.development.json, also the appsettings.json, and also the appsettings for production and staging. Also, you can remove a file, or edit a file, or download a file. For example, if I want to edit the appsettings.development.json, I can just go ahead and do some modification in the connection string. So this is a useful platform that we can use to see what we deploy to the Azure web application. Also, you can notice if we click on any folder here, it's going to be shown here in the CMD console. You can use the console to navigate through the folders, or you can navigate from the list over here. Also, if we go to the Process Explorer, we can see all the processes that are running right now for the application. For example, we can see the W3WP, which is a process worker that makes the application run. And then we can go to Properties to see a different information, modules, handles, also the threads. And you can see what are the threads that are waiting and the threads that are running. Also, you have tools. There are many options here. For example, you can download the deployment script as well. Also, we have a site extensions. By default, we have the ASP.NET Core login integration, which is installed by default. This is an extension for login. If you want to add another extension, you can go to the gallery, and then you can search for any extension you want to add to your application. There are many extensions here that you can choose from. So it's the same thing for staging and production. If I go to the Azure app for staging environment, and I go to this URL and do scm. Then I will be able to access the Kudu services for the staging environment. Also the same thing for production. If I do scm. Then I will be able to access the Kudu services for the production environment. Again, if I click on the app settings and then I do print, then I can see that the ASP.NET Core environment has the value production. And also I can see the website name, it's the blog web prod. Hello and welcome to this lecture. I am going to deploy our web application to the Azure DevOps account using the Azure CI/CD pipelines. To do that, we need an Azure DevOps account. You can create an Azure DevOps account for free by clicking on Start Free button. Also, we are going to need Git to be installed on our machine, so you can download Git from this URL by clicking on Download for Windows. You can go ahead and download Git for Windows. I have already created an Azure DevOps account. This is my organization name. Then I will provide a project name. I will keep the description empty, and then I will make sure that I have a private account. In the advanced, for the version control, I will make sure that I have the Git selected. For the work item process, I will keep it basic, and then I will create a project. The project has been created successfully. If I go to pipelines, I can see that I have pipelines, environments, library, and XML. But something here is missing, which is the release pipeline. If you don't see the release pipeline here, we can go to the organization level. Then we need to go to the organization settings. Then under the pipelines, we are going to click settings. Then we need to make sure that disable creation of classic release pipelines is off. If I go back to my project, then click on my project. If I go to pipelines, then I can see the release option here. Also, if I click on the pipelines here and do a create pipeline, you can see that we don't have a classic creation of the pipeline. Again, we need to configure that from the organization level. I will go to the name of the organization. Then in the bottom, I need to click on organization settings. Then I need to click on settings under the pipelines. Here I need to make sure that disable creation of classic build pipelines is off. Now I need to go back to my project. I will click on my project here. Then if I go to the pipelines and then I click on pipelines, then create pipeline, I can see that the classic editor is enabled. I will go back to Visual Studio, and before going forward and add my application to the source control Git, I need to remove the published profiles as we don't need them anymore. I will go to Properties. Then I will remove the published profiles that we created because we are going to use the Azure CI/CD this time to publish our application to different environment. So I will go ahead and do a right click and do delete. Also, I'm going to remove the service dependencies folder. It contains ARM template for each environment. It is used to deploy your infrastructure as a code to the Azure cloud. So we don't need it as well. I will go ahead and do a right click and delete that. Perfect. So I will rebuild my application to make sure that everything is working fine. Perfect. The application has been rebuilt successfully. Now I will go to Add to Source Control. Then I will click on Get. I will choose Azure DevOps here. My account has been connected automatically. This is my account, and this is the organization name that is coming from the Azure DevOps. This is the organization name. And also, this is the project name we just created. So if we go back here, we can see the blog web project. So this is the name of our project. For the repository name, I will provide our repository name, which is blog web app. Then I will do create and push to push my code to the remote repository, which is the blog web app. I can see that the push has been done successfully to the Azure DevOps. Also, we can see that we have a default branch, which is a master branch. And also here we can see our blog web app repository. So if I go back to my Azure DevOps account, then I will go to my projects. Then I click on repos. Then if I go to my blog web app repository and click on it, then I will see my files has been published to the remote repository, which is the blog web app. What I need to do is to create two branches, one for development, another one for staging. To do that, I will go to the master branch and then I will click on new branch. I will name that development, and then it's going to be based on the master branch. So I will do create. Here I am under the development branch. Then I need to create another branch for staging. I will do the same thing. I will go to development branch and then I will do new branch. I will name it staging. Then it needs to be based on master branch. I will do create. Perfect. Now I have three branches, one for staging, another one for development, another one for production, which is the master branch. If I go to Visual Studio and click on the master branch, then I will go to the 3 points here and then click on manage branches. If I open up the remote/origin folder, I will see only the master branch. To see the other remote branches, development and staging, I need to fetch the changes. So I will do a right click, then click fetch. Here I can see the remote development branch and the remote staging branch, also the remote master branch. To work on any remote branch locally, we need to check out that branch. For example, if I want to work on development branch, I need to check out the development branch locally. So I will do a right click and then I will do check out. That will create a local development branch, which I can do my changes on it. I will go back to the Azure DevOps platform. Then I need to create a CI pipeline for each branch. So I will click on pipelines. Then I will click on create pipeline button. Here I will use the classic editor. I will click on it. Here I can see by default the Azure repos get is selected. I can see also the name of my project, which is the blog web project, and my repository, which is the blog web app. Also, I can see my three branches, development, master, and staging. I will choose the development branch because I'm going to build a CI pipeline for development environment and I am using the development branch. I will do continue. Then I will look up for the .NET Core. I will select the ASP.NET Core and then I will do apply. Here I can see all the tasks that I need to build my project. I will remove the test task because I don't need it. And then I will go to the triggers. Here I will enable the continuous integration. This allows me to build my project whenever I commit a change to the development branch. I will go back to tasks. Then I need to specify the agent specification. I will go and select the Windows latest. Then I will save and queue. That will build the development branch. I will save and run. I can see that the agent job 1 is ready. I will click on it. The build is running and I can see the logs on the right side here. The build has been completed and I can see that there is one artifact. If I click on this one, I can see there is like a drop folder. Then I can see the file blog web app.zip, which is a zip file that has all my files that I need to publish to the Azure cloud. I will go back to the pipeline. Then I will edit the pipeline just to rename it. I will rename it to blog web project-dev. Perfect. I will save that. Then I need to create a CD pipeline. I will go to the releases. Then I will click new pipeline. Since I am going to deploy my application to the Azure web app, I need to select the Azure App Service deployment. I will do apply. I will name it development. I will close this window, and then I need to add an artifact. This is the name of my project, blog web project. Then I need to select the source, which is the build pipeline we just created. Then select the build pipeline, which is the blog web project -dev. We are going to get the latest version of the build. Then I will do add. Also, I will click on the continuous deployment. So I will enable the continuous deployment trigger. This will allow us to publish changes automatically to the Azure web app. So I will close this window. Then I will go to tasks. Here I need to provide the Azure subscription. I will go ahead and select my Azure subscription. Then the application type is going to be web app on Windows. Then the app service name, it's going to be the app service name for development, which is the Azure web app we created for development. So I will choose the blog web-dev. I will save the changes. Then I will do create a release. I will rename the release pipeline. I will call it CD pipeline dev. I will save that again. I will go to releases. If I go back to Visual Studio and make some changes, for example, I will add some changes in the HTML. I will go to the shared folder. Then I will go to the layout. Then I will add another subtitle. I will save that. Then I will commit and push the changes. I will give my commit a name. Then I will do commit all and push. So that will trigger the CD pipeline. If I go to the Azure DevOps platform, then I click on pipelines, I can see the build for development environment is running. If I click on the build, then I can see my commit. I will click on that. I will click on the agent job. Then I can see the build is running and I can see the logs on the right side. Perfect. The build has been finished and that should trigger the CD pipeline. If I go to the releases, I can see that CD pipeline for development environment is running. The CD pipeline for development has been finished. If I go to the development website, I need to see the changes. I will just type the address here and I can see the subtitle that I just added. So we were able to set up the CI/CD pipeline and deploy the changes automatically using the Azure CI/CD pipelines. I will do the same thing for staging environment. I will set up a CI pipeline for the staging. I will go to the Azure DevOps platform. Then I will go to pipelines. Then I will create a new pipeline for staging environment. Here I will choose use the classic editor. By default, I have the master branch, but this time I will go and select staging branch. I will do continue. Here I need to search for .NET Core. So I will search for .NET Core and I will select ASP.NET Core. I will do apply. I will remove the test task since we don't have any test for this project. So I will do remove. Perfect. Then I need to go to the pipeline here. And then I need to select the agent specification, which is the Windows latest. I will select triggers tab. Then I will enable the continuous integration. So by default here, I have the staging branch, which is good. Then I will do save and queue. I will go ahead and do save and run. I can see the agent job is ready. I will click on it. Here I can see the job has been started. Perfect. The build has been finished and I can see that I have one artifact here. If I click on that, I can see the drop folder here with a zip file that contains all the files that I need to publish to the staging environment. What I need to do, I will rename my pipeline. So I will go to the pipelines. Then I will click on my staging pipeline. And then I will do edit. And then I will rename that to blog web project-stage. I will save that. Perfect. Now I need to set up a release pipeline, which is a CD pipeline. So I will go to releases. Then I will click on the new button here. Then I will click on new release pipeline. Since we are going to deploy our application to the Azure web app, I will select the Azure App Service deployment. I will do apply. I will rename it staging. Then I need to add an artifact. So this is the name of my project. Then I will select the CI pipeline that I just created for staging. I will do add. Then I will click on the continuous deployment trigger and I will enable the continuous deployment. I will close that. Then I need to go to the tasks. Here I need to select the Azure subscription. So I will go ahead to the drop-down list and select my Azure subscription name. Here I have the app type, which is a web app for Windows. And also I need to select the app service name. My app service name, it's blog web-stage. I will select this. Perfect. I will save this. Then I will create a new release. I will do create. Also, I need to rename the CD pipeline. I will rename it CD pipeline stage. I will save that. So then I need to go to the releases and I can see the CD pipeline for staging has been finished. If I go to Visual Studio and then go to the branches, I will go to manage branches. I need to check out the staging branch. I will do a right click and then do checkout. Perfect. I have my staging branch locally. I will go to the layout file and then make a new changes. So I will do another subtitle and I will call it staging app. Perfect. I will save this. Then I will commit these changes. I will name my commit staging changes. I will do commit and push. My changes has been pushed remotely. If I go to the Azure DevOps platform, then if I go to the pipelines, then I see that the CI pipeline has been triggered automatically by committing the changes. So if I click on it, then I click on the pipeline, I click on the agent, I can see the build is running. Perfect. The build for staging environment has been finished. If I go to the releases, I should see that CD pipeline is triggered. The CD pipeline for staging has been finished. If I go to the Azure web app, I need to see my changes. I will go here and just paste the URL to the staging environment. Perfect. I can see that the staging that I did for staging environment is here, staging app. So let's do the same thing for the production environment. I will go again to the release pipeline, and then I will go to the pipelines, and then I will create a new pipeline for production environment. I will use the classic editor. Then I will keep the master branch, which is the branch for production. So I will do continue. Then I will search again for .NET Core. I will select ASP.NET Core. Then I will do apply. Again, I will remove the test task since we are not doing any tests. Then I will go to the pipeline section here. And then I will select the agent specification. It's going to be Windows latest. Also, I will go to the triggers tab. And then I will enable the continuous integration. By default here, I have the master branch, which is good. I will do save and queue. Then I will save and run. The agent is ready. And I can see that the build has been started. Perfect. The build for the production environment has been finished. Now I need to go to the pipelines. Then I need to rename the CI pipeline for production. I will click on the pipeline. Then I will go to the edit. Then I will rename that to blog web project-prod. I will save this. Now I need to set up the CD pipeline for the production environment. So I will go to the releases. Then I will click on new, then new release pipeline. Since we are deploying our application to the Azure web app, I need to select the Azure App Service deployment. I will do apply. Then I will rename that to prod. I will close this window. Then I will go and add an artifact. So my project is blog web project. I will select the CI pipeline that has the build. It's going to be the blog web project-prod. Perfect. I will do add. Then I will click on the continuous deployment trigger. And then I will enable the continuous deployment. I will close this. Then I will go to the tasks. And here I need to provide the Azure subscription. So I will provide my Azure subscription. Also, I need to provide the app service name. I will choose the blog web-prod, which is the Azure web app. Also, I will rename the CD pipeline. It's going to be the CD pipeline prod. I will save that. And then I will create a new release. I will click on my release here. And I can see that my release is in progress. If I click on it, and I can see all the logs here. The release has been finished. So if I go to the releases, I can see that I have 3 CD pipelines, one for production, one for staging, another one for development. Now, if I go to Visual Studio, and then if I go to the branches, and then select the master branch, then I will add another subtitle. I will call it Prod App. I will save this. Then I will name my commit prod changes. Then I will do commit all and push. Perfect. All the changes has been pushed automatically to the remote repository. If I go to the Azure DevOps, I can see that the CD pipeline has been triggered automatically and is still in progress. Perfect. The CD pipeline has been finished. Now, if I go to the Azure Web App for production, I need to see my changes. I will go to the browser here, and then I will paste the URL for the production. Perfect. And I can see the changes that I just made. Here, the prod app. So we were able to set up the CI/CD pipeline for each environment. So here we have 3 CD pipelines, one for production, another one for staging, and another one for development. And also we have a CI pipelines, one for staging, another one for production, then another one for development. So we were able to set up the Azure DevOps CI/CD pipeline for each environment. Hello and welcome to this lecture. We are going to see how we can override the appsettings.json file through the Azure DevOps variables. So I will open up the appsettings.json, and here I have the appsettings.production.json, and also I have the appsettings.staging.json file. Sometimes we don't want to write the connection string explicitly inside of this file. So we need to override the connection string through the Azure DevOps variables. What I am going to do is I'm going to remove the connection string value from the appsettings.production.json file. But before doing that, I need to switch to the master branch, which is the production branch. So I will go here and then switch to the master branch. Then I will remove the connection string value. Perfect. So I will save that, and then I will commit the changes. I will name my commit to remove connection prod. Then I will do commit all and push. Perfect, the changes has been pushed successfully. Now I need to go to the Azure DevOps account. Under pipelines, I will click releases. Then I will click on the CD pipeline prod, which is a pipeline for production. Then I will do edit. Here I need to go to variables tab. Then I will add a variable that has a connection string for production database. I will put the connection string in the value. Then I need to provide the name of this connection string, which is connection strings that block connection string. The reason why we have this dot here, because the connection string is an object. So if I go back to Visual Studio, here we can see that we have connection strings as JSON object. And then we have a property block connection string. To access the block connection string, we need to put the dot between the connection strings and the block connection string. And this is what we have done here. So we put the dot between the connection strings and the block connection string. So I will go to the tasks. Then I will click on the deploy Azure App Service task. Then I will open up the file transforms and variable substitution options. Here in the JSON variable substitution, I need to provide the path to the appsettings.production.json, which is the appsettings file that contains the connection string for production. I will go ahead and save. Then I will create a new release. I will click create, and a new release has been created. I will click on it. My release is in progress. I can click on logs. The deployment is running. Perfect. So if I go to Visual Studio, I can see that there is no connection string explicitly written here. I will go to the browser to access the Azure Web App for production. So I will select this tab and then paste the URL for production environment. Perfect. And we are able to access the Azure Web App for production and access the database through the Azure DevOps variables. So we were able to override the connection string for production through the Azure DevOps variables. I will do the same thing for the staging connection string. So I will go to the Visual Studio. Then I will switch from master branch to staging branch. Then I will go to the appsettings.staging.json. And then I will remove the connection string value from the appsettings.staging.json file. I will save this file, and then I will commit my changes. I will name it removed connection from staging. Then I will do commit all and push. The changes has been pushed successfully. I will go to the Azure DevOps account. Then I will go to the releases. Then I will choose the pipeline for staging. I will go ahead and do edit. I will click on the variables tab. Then I will add a variable. Then I will add the connection string. In the name, I will indicate the name of the connection string. For the scope, I will choose staging. Then I will go to the tasks tab. Then I will click on deploy Azure App Service task. I will open up the file transforms and variable substitution options. And here in the JSON variables, I will indicate the file that I need to override with the Azure DevOps variables. Perfect. Now I will save this and then create a new release. If we go back again to Visual Studio, we can see that the appsettings.json has no connection string explicitly written on this file. So the Azure DevOps variable will take care of overriding the empty value of the connection string of staging. I will click on the release. The release for staging has been finished. I will go to the Azure Web App for staging. I will paste the URL here. Perfect. The staging environment is working as expected, and I can see that I'm getting the data from the database. And we were able to override the connection string through the Azure DevOps variable. So we were able to override the connection string for the staging environment and for the production environment without explicitly writing the connection string in our application. In the previous lecture, we have seen how we were able to override the connection string using the Azure DevOps variables, and we create a variable with the value of a connection string. But the connection string is still explicit and is not fully protected. We need to create an Azure Key Vault to store the connection string. So I will go to my Azure account. Then I will do create a new resource. I will look up for a Key Vault. This is the Key Vault resource that I need. I will create a Key Vault. I have my subscription. I will choose my resource group, which is the RG-blog web. Then I will give a name to my Key Vault, which is Key Vault variable stage. The Key Vault will store the staging connection string. I will keep the region as it, and also I will keep the pricing tier as it. So I will go ahead and do next. Here I will choose the vault access policy. And by default, I have my user with the key permissions, secret permissions, and certificate permissions. All of them, they have the same permissions: get, list, update, and more. If you don't have a user, you can create a new one by clicking create. Then you can select a configuration template. For example, you can select key secret and certificate management, and automatically it's going to select all the permissions that you need. And then you can look up for the username that is similar to the email address that you have. So for example, if I put North here, I can see my principal here, so I can select my principal. Then you go to the application, which is optional. Then you can do review and create your principal. Then you can create an access policy. I have already created an access policy here. I will do review and create. I will create the Key Vault for staging. The deployment of the Key Vault has been finished. I can go to the resource. Here I can create my secret by going to secrets. Then I will click on generate import. I will provide a name for my secret. It's going to be connection string stage. Then I will provide the secret value, which is the connection string for staging that I provided here in the Azure DevOps variable. So I will go to the Azure Key Vault. Then I will provide the connection string for staging. I will just go ahead and create the secret. The secret has been created inside the Key Vault for staging. Now I will go to the Azure DevOps account. Then I will select library. Here I can create a variable group from the tab here, or I can create the variable group from the button. I will go ahead and click on variable group. I will give a variable group a name. It's going to be stage variable group. Then I will enable link secrets from an Azure Key Vault as variable. So I will enable this. Then I will choose my Azure subscription. Then I need to choose the Key Vault name that I just created for staging. This is the Key Vault variable stage, which is the name of the Key Vault that I just created. I will authorize the access. Then I will add a variable that I created in the Azure Key Vault for staging. So I will click on add. Then I will choose the connection string stage, which is the name of the secret. I will select that, and then I will do OK. I will save the variable group. Then I will go to the releases. I will select the CD pipeline for staging. I will go to Edit. Then I will go to the variables under the pipeline. I will click on the variable groups. Then I will do link variable group. Here I will choose the stage variable group that I just created. And then I will click on stages. And I will select staging. I will click link. Then I will save this. Now I need to go to the pipeline variables. Instead of having the connection string for staging explicitly written here, I will remove that. Then I will provide the name of the secret. So I will do a $sign. Then I will provide the name of the secret, which is connection string stage. I will save this. Then I will create a new release to make sure that everything is working fine. So I will click create. The release has been created and the release has been finished. I will open up a new tab and go to the Azure Web App for staging. Perfect, everything is working fine and I can see that the data is coming from the database. So we were able to grab the connection string from the Azure Key Vault. So I'm going to do the same thing for the connection string for production. I will go to the Azure account. I will go to the home page. Then I will create a new resource. I will look up for a Key Vault. This is the Key Vault resource. I will create a Key Vault. I will select my resource group. Then I will give my Key Vault a name. I will keep the region the same. Also, the pricing tier is going to be standard. I will go ahead and do next. Then I will choose Vault Access Policy. I have already an access policy user with the key permissions, secret, and certificate permissions. So I will go ahead and do review and create. The resource has been created successfully. I will go to the resource. Here I will create a secret. Then I will click on Generate Import. I will provide a name. It's going to be connection string prod. For the secret value, I will provide the connection string for production. Perfect. I will create the secret. I will go to the Azure DevOps account. Then I will go to library. Then I will create a new variable group. I will give the variable group a name. It's going to be prod variable group. Then I will enable link secrets from an Azure Key Vault as variable. I will choose my Azure subscription. Then I will choose the Key Vault name for production. So this is the Key Vault name for production. I will authorize that. Then I will add the secret. So this is the connection string prod, which is the name of the secret. I will select that. Then I will do OK. I will save the variable group for production. Now I need to go to the releases. I will select the CD pipeline for production. Then I will go to Edit. Then I will click on Variables tab. I will click on Variable Groups and then click on Link Variable Group. I will choose the variable group for production we just created and then I will click on Stages. I will select Prod. Then I will click Link. I will save this. Then I need to go to the pipeline variables. So instead of explicitly writing the connection string for production in the Azure DevOps variable, we can just remove it and replace it with the Azure Key Vault secret. So I will go ahead and do a $sign and then provide the name of the secret, which is a connection string prod. I will save this. Then I will create a new release to make sure that everything is working fine. A new release has been created. The release has been finished. So now I need to go to the browser and make sure that I'm still getting the data from the database using the connection string from the Azure Key Vault secret. So I will go to the browser. Then I will go to the Azure Web App for production. Perfect. Everything is working fine. And I can see that the data is coming from the database successfully. So we were able to secure the connection string using the Azure Key Vault and grab it from the secret of the Azure Key Vault and use it in our Azure Web App. Hello and welcome to this lecture. We are going to see how we can apply the branch policies and set up a pull request. So under the Azure DevOps project, we are going to click on the project settings. Then I'm going to scroll down to the repos and then I will click on repositories. Here I can see my repository, blog web app. I will click on it. Then I will go to the Policies tab. If I scroll down, I can see the branch policies and the list of all my branches, development, master, and staging. To access the branch policies, we can click on any branch here. For example, I will click on development. Here I can see the list of the branch policies and other configurations. The first branch policy here, it requires a minimum number of reviewers. If I enable it, I can see that the minimum number of reviewers set to 2 by default. So we can change this number to any number of reviewers we want. For example, I can put 1 reviewer in our case. Also here, we have 4 options. The first option is allowing the requester to approve their own changes. For example, I can create a pull request for my changes, and in the same time, I can approve my changes. So if I enable this option, I will be able to approve my changes. The second option here is to prevent the new pushers from approving their own changes. Also, there is an option to complete the pull request even if some reviewers vote to wait or reject the changes. And then the fourth option, when we have a new changes, we can apply other policies. So if I click on this option, I can see other policies that we can apply. For example, the first policy here, it requires at least 1 approval on every iteration. And the second policy is it requires at least 1 approval on the last iteration. Also, we have another policy that it's going to reset all the approval votes except the reject vote or the wait vote. And then the fourth policy is going to reset all the code reviewers' votes, including the votes for the reject or the wait. So there are a bunch of policies that we can apply for a pull request. Here we have another policy that we can apply on a pull request, which is a linked work item. When you work on a user story, you need to link the user story with your pull request by indicating the number of the user story. So if I enable this one, you have 2 options here, if you want it to be required or optional. And here we have another policy for checking for comment resolution. Sometimes the reviewer put a comment to resolve an issue. You need to resolve that issue and indicating that the issue has been resolved. So if I enable this one, you have the choice to have it to be required or optional. And then we have the policy for limiting the merge types. If I enable it, I can see the list of the merge types. For example, if I want 2 merge types, I can just uncheck the merge that I don't want and then keep the merge type that I want. So here we have the basic merge, which preserves the history of your commits. So when you merge your changes, you are going to see the list of your commits. Then we have the squash merge. The squash merge is going to give you 1 commit that has all the commits that you have done. And we have the rebase and fast forward, which creates a linear history of your commits. And then we have the rebase with merge commit, which is a semi-linear history of your commits. Also, you can disable all these policies by switching to off. For example, I can go ahead and disable all these policies and switch to off. For the build validation is a way to rebuild your code before merging your pull request. That makes sure that your code has no errors and it's built successfully. For the status checks, it gives you the possibility to check if the other services are successfully passed before completing the pull request. And then we have the automatically included reviewers. Sometimes you want to include some reviewers by default in your pull requests without adding them each time you create a pull request. So what we are going to do is we are going to apply the branch policies on the staging branch. So I will click on staging. Then I will enable the number of the reviewers that I want to have on my pull request. So I will enable this, and then I will select only 1 reviewer in our case. I will also allow myself to approve my changes when I do a pull request. I will keep the other option as it. Also, I will keep the linked work items off because I don't have any user story that I'm working on. I will keep the comment resolution off since I have 1 reviewer, which is myself. For the limit merge types, I will enable that just to have a list of the merge types that I can choose from. For the build validation, I will go ahead and add a build validation. I will click on add a new build policy. Then I will choose the name of my build, which is the blog web projects-stage. For the trigger is going to be automatic. Whenever the source branch is updated, it's going to start the build. And also for the policy, it's going to be required. For the build expiration, it's going to be after 12 hours if the staging has been updated. Then I will save my build policy. I will keep everything as it for now. I don't need any status checks. And also I don't need a default reviewer. I will go to Visual Studio and then I will switch from staging to development branch. Then I will make some changes in the code. So I will go to views, then I will go to the home folder, then I will go to the privacy file. I will update the title here. I will save the file, then I will commit my changes. I will do commit all and push. The changes has been pushed successfully. I will go to the Azure DevOps account. Then I will go to the repos, and we can see that we have a notification that allows us to create a new pull request for development branch. So we can create a pull request from the notification, or we can go to the pull request tab. Then I will click on new pull request. By default, we can see that we have a master branch, as the branch is going to take the changes from development branch. So we don't want to push the changes from development into the master branch directly, but what we want to do is to create a pull request into the staging branch. So to fix that, I will go to the branches. Then for the staging branch, I will go to the more options. Then I will click on set as default branch. So if I go back again to the pull requests, I will do new pull requests. I can see that the staging now is a default branch. So I can create a pull request with the changes into the staging branch. So I will give my pull request a name. It's going to be PR changed HTML privacy page. For the description, I will keep it empty. For the reviewers, I will add my user. Then for the work items to link, we don't have a work item because we don't have a user story that we were working on. So we don't have an ID. For the tags, we can add any tag name we want. But for now, I will keep it empty. I will go ahead and create the pull request. So here we can see our policies. So we have one required check not yet run. So the build is waiting for merge. And also we need at least one reviewer to approve the changes. Also, we have one merge conflict. We can resolve the conflict if it is more complicated by going to the code via Visual Studio. Or we can just go to the conflicts tab and then resolve the conflict from here. The conflicts tab is not provided by default. So if you go to the marketplace for Visual Studio, you will see the extension and then you can get it for free. It says this extension is already installed on this organization. So that's the reason why we see the conflicts tab here. So I will go ahead and resolve the conflict. So if I click on this arrow here, I can see many options here. You can submit the merge directly, or you can keep the whole target, which is the right file from staging. Also, you can take the whole source, which is the left file from development. You can also preview the draft, save the draft, or reset the merge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything from the source. So I will take the whole source, which is the left file from development branch. I will confirm. As you can see here, the conflict has been resolved. So I will go to the overview, and the build validation policy has been started. So once the build validation policy is done, I will be able to merge the changes. I will go ahead and approve my changes because I have a policy here that it says we need at least one reviewer to approve the changes. So I will approve that, and it resolves the policy. The build has been finished successfully, and we can go ahead and complete the merge. Here we have the merge type that we have seen earlier. I will keep the merge type as no fast forward. Also, I don't want to delete my development branch. I will uncheck this option. I will do complete the merge. Perfect, the merge has been done to the staging branch. And we were able to create a pull request to push changes to the staging branch. That way we were able to protect the staging branch from pushing direct changes to it. So we will apply the same branch policies for the production branch. I will go to branches. Then for the master branch, I will go to the more options. Then I will go to the branch policies. So I am under the master branch. I will go ahead and activate reviewers for the pull request. I will again put one reviewer, and then I will allow the requesters to approve their own changes, which is our case here. Then I will keep the other two policies as it, and I will enable the merge types. Also for the build validation, I will add a build validation. It's going to be the build for production, which is the blog web project prod. So I will go ahead and save that. Then I will keep other policies as it. So now if I go to Visual Studio and switch to the master branch, then I will try to make some changes here. Then I will do commit all and push. And we will see that we will not be able to push the changes directly to master because it's protected by a pull request. So I will do commit all and push. Perfect. It says fail to push the remote repository. The reason why, because the master branch now is protected by a pull request. It's the same thing for staging. Because we create branch policies for staging, we will not be able to push changes directly to the staging branch. So let's try that. I will go to the HTML, then I will make some changes here. I will save the file, and then commit the changes. I will do commit all and push, and it should fail. As expected, it was not able to push directly to the staging branch because we applied the branch policies and protected by a pull request. If we switch to development branch, then make a change, I will save the file and then commit the changes. I will do commit all and push, and it should push changes to the development branch with no issues because development branch has no branch policies applied on it. Perfect, we were able to push our changes successfully to the remote development branch with no issues. So we were able to protect our staging branch and production branch, which is the master branch, from any changes to be pushed directly to them.